Welcome back to this series where we are trying to figure out if Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond are a championship caliber front court. In this video, we will be talking about how Blake Griffin did against the better power forwards in the NBA. It's going to be the similar format that I did with the Andre Drummond versus the best centers, but in this video, we will be comparing how Blake Griffin did when he went up against Pascal Siakam, LaMarcus Aldridge, Julius Randle, Aaron Gordon, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Lauri Markkanen. Now, I am leaving notable names like Kristaps Porzingis off this list because Griffin did not go head-to-head with Porzingis one time this season. But yeah, let's see how Griffin did against the better power forwards. And we'll be starting off with Pascal Siakam. So, just like in the last episode, if a player's production increased in a certain stat, I placed a plus sign next to it. If a player's production in a certain stat decreased, I placed a minus sign next to it. And if a player's production was equal to what they averaged for the regular season, I placed an equal sign next to it. And the numbers in bold are where a player won the matchup when they went head to head. So, Griffin outscored Siakam. He had a worse field goal percentage, but his three-point percentage was better. His rebounds went up. His turnovers were through the roof. His blocks and steals are extremely low, but they went up when he went against Siakam this year. So, I'm going to give Blake Griffin the win in this one. And on top of Griffin averaging more, his teams won, so I think I have to give Griffin the edge in this matchup. The next matchup we're going to look at is Griffin versus Aldridge. Griffin's points went up against Aldridge, and his three-point percentage went up, but Aldridge's field goal percentage went up, and his scoring went up as well. And Aldridge also won the rebounding battle, and he also won on the defensive end. Griffin didn't average a single block or steal against LaMarcus Aldridge. So I think I'm going to have to give the edge to Aldridge in this matchup. His teams also won, so I still have to give the edge to Aldridge. Blake Griffin, when he went up against Julius Randle this year, had a whopping 36.5 points per game, which is an increase from his regular season average. His three-point percentage went up, and his field goal percentage also went up. Randle averaged 20.5 points per game. His field goal percentage took a very teeny tiny dip. Griffin won the assist battle and the steals battle. They both committed an equal amount of turnovers, but the 36.5 points per game means I'm probably going to have to give this one to Blake Griffin. So that's 2 wins for Blake so far. Here is Blake Griffin versus Aaron Gordon. Now this one is really hard for me to decide who won the matchup. Griffin did average more points, and he had a little bit more assists, but Gordon averaged less turnovers, shot better from the field, and averaged more rebounds. His three-point percentage was slightly down, and Blake's three-point percentage was also slightly down. Griffin's team did win, but at the same time, Gordon won in more categories than Griffin did. This is a really tough one. I almost want to give it a push, but at the same time, I'm going to probably give the win to Gordon in this matchup because Gordon won in 4 categories. He won in field goal percentage, rebounds, steals, and turnovers. Griffin won the battle in 3 of the categories. So I think I'm going to give the edge to Aaron Gordon in this matchup. So I'm just going to be blunt on this one. Antetokounmpo won this matchup, and don't be deceived by Antetokounmpo's scoring and rebounding outputs going down because that had more to do with the Bucks just having the Pistons number this year and in the playoffs. So keep in mind these numbers are just from the regular season. Yeah, Antetokounmpo dominated Griffin. I mean, the 7 turnovers a game, and that's not a typo. 7 turnovers a game is through the roof, and Griffin even had a quadruple double in one of his matchups with Antetokounmpo, and not in a good way. He had a triple-double plus 10 turnovers. So, yeah, Antetokounmpo wins this matchup. So, the last matchup I want to go over is when Blake Griffin went head-to-head with Lauri Markkanen this year. Blake Griffin increased his scoring, and Markkanen's scoring went slightly down, but his field goal percentage went slightly up. Griffin's field goal percentage went up by quite a bit. Markkanen won the rebounding battle. Griffin won the assist battle. He committed a little bit more turnovers. Markkanen won this matchup in more categories, but Griffin averaged 10 extra points a game, though. So I'm going to give the edge to Griffin in this matchup. So when we tally this all up, Griffin outscored the opposing power forward in all 6 of the cases that we looked at. He had a better field goal percentage only one time, though. But his three-point percentage, he outshot the opposing power forward from 3 in all 6 of these cases. Griffin only out-rebounded the opposing power forward in 1 out of these 6 cases that we looked at. Griffin did have more assists in 4 of them. Makes sense. Griffin had more blocks only 1 time, and he had more steals only 2 times. And one thing that's slightly alarming, if I have to be honest, is that Griffin had less turnovers than the opposing power forward in none of the cases that we looked at. Who knows what to make of that? But in my judgment, Griffin won the individual matchups with Lauri Markkanen, Julius Randle, and Pascal Siakam, while losing the individual matchups with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Aaron Gordon, and LaMarcus Aldridge. When Griffin played against these power forwards, he held them below their scoring average in 4 of the cases. He only held them below their field goal percentage only 2 times, though. Something interesting is that he held the opposing power forward below their 3-point percentage in 4 out of the 5 of these cases. And I put 5 because LaMarcus Aldridge did not attempt a 3 against the Pistons in their 2 meetings this season. While Griffin did get out rebounded a lot, he held the opposing power forward below their rebound average in 5 of these cases, which is interesting. Something to look into at some point. Griffin held the opposing power forward below their assist average 0 times. The opposing power forward averaged less blocks against Griffin 3 times and less steals 3 times. And the opposing power forward averaged more turnovers than their regular season average in only 2 of the cases that we looked at. That is how Blake Griffin affected the opposing power forward. And now, just like what I did with Drummond, let's see how the opposing power forward affected Griffin. So Griffin was held below his scoring average only twice. Respectable. Griffin was held below his field goal percentage only 1 time. And he was only held below his 3-point percentage twice. While Griffin did not necessarily out-rebound the opposing power forward that much, and while the opposing power forward's rebounds generally went down, Griffin was held below his rebound average 4 times. So I don't know. Griffin was held below his assist average 4 times. He was held below his block average only twice. I mean, Griffin doesn't average that many blocks or steals to begin with. So, I mean, I don't know. Griffin was held below his steal average 3 times. And while Griffin never had less turnovers in any of the cases we looked at, his turnovers only increased in 2 of these cases. So the first thing I want to note before I talk about Griffin's overall performance versus these power forwards is that this is not a film study, and neither was the Drummond video. This is more to show what happened on the stat sheet. Now we can possibly go into film and see we can possibly see how the film correlates with the stats. But Griffin outperforms the opposing power forward in 11 out of 24 categories by my counts. The categories like Griffin outproducing the opposing power forward in a certain stat, being held below his average in a certain stat, or holding the opposing power forward below his average in a certain stat. Griffin won in 11 out of 24 categories. A couple things I want to note about what I found is Griffin's scoring was mostly consistent. I mean, He's an offensive powerhouse. That's what it looks like, at least. Even when you just watch the games, you can see his offense is generally good. His defense was interesting. The opposing power forward's field goal percentage went up a lot, but their three-point percentage didn't. So again, that's all about the film. Why was that? I couldn't tell you right now. Something to definitely dive into. So with the rebounding needing a lot of improvement, I mean, who knows why that was? Like, Griffin's rebounds were never really that great, other than Siakam. That could possibly be because Drummond's getting all the rebounds. That's one thing to possibly think about, but again, that's all about the film. What does the film show? I mean, I don't know. I didn't really notice any similarities between the matchups of the ones he won and the ones he lost, in my judgment. With Drummond, I could see similarities between the matchups he won and the matchups that he lost, but I can't really see that with Griffin. I don't know. Yeah, that's how Griffin did versus the better power forwards in the NBA. Does any of this mean that he's not a championship caliber power forward? No. Doesn't mean he is. Doesn't necessarily mean that either. None of this means he is or isn't a championship caliber power forward. I don't know what to make of this one. This is a strange video to make, in all honesty. I don't know what to make of any of the information that I gathered on Blake Griffin. I think that will wrap up this episode. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for the next episode as we try to answer the question pertaining to whether Griffin and Drummond are a championship caliber front court. One last thing before I close out is Dose of Dion got hacked. So if you were subscribed to him, please stay subscribed to him. Well, unsubscribe from the hacker and go subscribe to Dose of Dion 2.0. It's a lot of hard work to go down the waist for him. So yeah, please go subscribe to Dose of Dion 2.0 if you are watching this video. Thank you all again for watching. Stay tuned for the next part.